At 8:10, Vehicle 1, my good buddy Sergeant Busick's truck, hits an IED as well. I hit an IED. He comes around to sweep around my truck to clear a path for the wrecker. He hits an IED. Both our trucks blown up within 50 yards of each other. Mission 24, which happened the week leading up to September 24th, 2010. This mission didn't go right from the beginning. Case in point, Mission 24. Mid-brief, Master Sergeant Vescovi told Lieutenant Brown that the mission was canceled. This was prior to any mission. You do a mission brief, right? You do the terrain model, you talk through the mission, is what it is. Mid-brief, we got told, hey, you're not doing that anymore. And instead, we are taking the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Adams, up to Sangin, 3-7 India Company's old FOB, which at the time is being run by the Georgian military force. So this mission starts off, Lieutenant Brown is the CC, convoy commander, Staff Sergeant Letterman is the ACC, assistant convoy commander, and the security team leader is Sergeant Busick. Sergeant Busick was our security team leader. He was our platoon sergeant. He was honestly one of the best men I ever served with, and we still talk even to this day. 06, line of departure, manifest call. We do the manifest, which is the, who's here, at 04 this morning. 11 vehicles, VICs, 33 packs, passengers. Vic 1, 2, and 6, which is the convoy commander, 10 and 11 are all security vehicles. I am Vic 1. I was lead Vic for most of the deployment. So we do manifest call at 04. We line up at 06. 06:55, we depart friendly lines. 08:25, short halt, load checks. Anytime you leave the wire, you got to do this. Make sure your load's not messing up, not falling off, not shifting. This is especially important when you've got little kids running around with slingshots trying to jump on your truck and undo chain binders, which happened a lot back then in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. 9:40 in the morning, we're back on the road. Vehicle 7, the assistant convoy commander, Staff Sergeant Letterman, hits an IED in a wadi, which is a dried out riverbed. They are all over Afghanistan. That's what happens in the desert, right? Staff Sergeant Letterman, who had a compound fracture in his right shin, basically the truck floorboard came up and just crushed everything from ankle to knee. If we fast forward years in advance, I believe he actually got that portion of his leg amputated. And during this time from 9:40 to 11, we're having to set up the LZ, provide security, triage, make sure Staff Sergeant Letterman's okay, right? There's a reason we're medevacing. And we call in the medevac Verge shows up. It's actually PJs, right? Myself, Orr, Crabtree, and Doc Jackson carried the litter to the bird, meaning the stretcher, and then we start moving again, right? We get back in convoy formation, we start rolling. What's the worst that could happen at this point? Well, next thing we know, Vehicle 6 mine roller breaks. So the left 5 wheels of the mine roller just fall off in the desert. Cotter pin snapped and they just, whatever. These things break all the time, right? So now we're recovering everything, basically meaning, hey, this mine roller has now been picked up by a wrecker and thrown on the back of another truck because it broke. But to make things worse, the assistant convoy commander, who had a mine roller as well, luckily that one is still good, right? I don't know how, even though the 7-ton is destroyed. So it's being mounted on the convoy commander's vehicle. Basically, we took the mine roller off the front of the blown up 7-ton and we moved it to where the new vehicle had just lost its mine roller in the desert. The wheels fell off. Takes until about 1400. So mind you, we hit this IED at 9:40. So 4.5 hours later, we get that mine roller, the broken one, mounted on vehicle 4, which is an LVSR. And hopefully it's chained down well, because I binded it down myself with Lance Corporal Williams and Sergeant Major Calbaugh, of all things. Funny thing happened during this. There was a moment where there was an LVSR that was just in the middle of the LZ, waiting on the helicopter to come in, and it was in the way. And we were calling the radio to get it to move, and it wasn't moving. So I ran across, jumped in the driver's seat. I didn't have an LVSR license. I had never driven one before, so I'm in there banging on things, trying to figure out how to lock up the axles to get it to actually engage, to get it out of the way so the bird can land. And I'm swearing up a storm and smashing things in the cab and whatever. And I finally get it on and I finally get it moving and we get it out of the LZ. Only to then find out that Sergeant Major was the person sitting in the passenger seat of that truck as I'm cursing and banging and swearing up a storm in this freaking truck trying to pretend I know how to drive. Didn't realize till after the fact it was Sergeant Major sitting there. So this whole thing was a mess. 1440, we had to rebind some other back on Vehicle 4. We're back in convoy order, hoping to roll by 1500. So 5.5 hours later, we're finally Oscar Mike on the move. An hour later, we make contact with a blown up Navy convoy. Their wreckers on a trailer blown up, and they need our help recovering a blown up mine roller. So we help them out, right? So we stop and help this other convoy get their stuff figured out. 2 hours later, we're finally on the road again. And an hour after that. So mind you, this is like 25, maybe 30 miles that took us from 07 to 1900. So 12 hours of convoy to get 25 miles in the desert, right? And we finally enter India Company CP. 5:30 the next morning, we change our internal frequencies, and at 6:10, we depart friendly lines, now with only 6 vehicles and 19 passengers. We've left some stuff there, to head back and to go do some bridge reconnaissance. So the whole point of this mission was to go and do reconnaissance to build a bridge across the Helmand River, which is why we changed last minute to take the lieutenant colonel up there and take a look. So the next morning, 0530, we head out to do that, and then we're out there for 4 hours. We head back to the CP, 5 Vics, 14 packs. Vehicle 2 and 5 get stuck, and we used an LVSR to pull Vehicle 2 up the hill and a random 7-ton from another convoy to pull Vehicle 5 out and up. Now, mind you, again, this is route reconnaissance, right? So we're just out messing around. Now, at 1430, the 7-ton couldn't get that vehicle out, so we had to get a wrecker tossed our way. And then finally, Vehicle 2 is now slaving, which is, like jumper cables starting Vehicle 3 in hopes that it'll keep a charge long enough to make it to the COP, right? So the alternator is dying. So basically, we've got 2 vehicles stuck. One of the 2 that's towing has a bad alternator and keeps freaking dying in the desert. We have to call in for another wrecker to pull one of the vehicles out, while the vehicle with the bad alternator, we have to keep jump starting it to get it to keep pulling. So we've got 2 broken vehicles. One's being pulled by a vehicle that can't keep a charge, and the other we had to request a wrecker support from someone else. So again, everything that could go wrong in this mission is going wrong. 1620, my truck dies due to bad fuel. 1625, the LVSR dies, and we both get pulled up the hill by a freaking bulldozer. That's what they had to come get us to pull ourselves up the freaking fob. So basically, at this point, we've got like 4 vehicles being pulled by 4 other vehicles. They're all dying. Everything's gone to hell. Half our mine rollers are blown up and strapped on truck beds. You get the idea, right? 7 o'clock the next morning, we depart friendly line with 10 vehicles, 28 passengers. At 7:20, we're halted because the freaking COC back at Camp Leatherneck messed up some paperwork, i.e., they had the wrong names on the convoy, and we sat there for 25 minutes. 25 minutes because of a freaking paper guy sitting at Leatherneck going, oh, we don't have the right names on the roster. Wait, mind you, we're in Afghanistan in the middle of the freaking desert, right? So 25 minutes later, Vehicle 2, which is me at the time because we'd flip-flopped, hits an IED. So 25 minutes after this stupid paperwork snafu, I hit an IED, going to charge up Vehicle 4's batteries because we were in line to go on this convoy. We're all sitting there. Vehicle 4 dies while we're still dealing with the freaking paperwork mess up. And so I sweep a U-turn to go back and charge a vehicle that died while we're doing this paperwork BS. And because we'd been sitting there and I had to turn around to charge this dying vehicle, I hit an IED. Literally big U-turn, boom, right? At 8:10, Vehicle 1, my good buddy Sergeant Busick's truck, hits an IED as well, sweeping around my truck for the wrecker. So I hit an IED, he comes around to sweep around my truck to clear a path for the wrecker, he hits an IED. Both our trucks blown up within 50 yards of each other, sitting there in the freaking desert, all because I had to wait on a freaking paperwork mess up. 9:30, my truck is now dead because of more fuel issues again. These things had a really bad issue with the fuel water separator O-rings dying in the desert, and you had to like replace all this crap all the time. And so now the wrecker is towing my truck back to where we left so that we can fix it and spend the next 24 hours hanging out, because once people hit an IED, you're supposed to wait 24 hours before going back on the road. So basically, this is day 3. We were leaving to go back to our base. We hit 2 IEDs. We turned around and made it a mile back to where we came from to try again the next day. At 10 o'clock, so on the way back to that base, this LVS gets stuck on a hill My notes literally say, because I won't name him, because so-and-so's name can't drive. An MATV, which is like if a four-wheeler and a Corvette had a kid, that's what an MATV comes out to. Pulls a 100,000-pound towing capability truck up a hill. So it's pretty bad when basically like the Humvee on steroids is towing the biggest logistics vehicle we have up a hill because it can't make it. So 3.5 hours after we left the base, we get back to the base with a vehicle being towed, 2 vehicles having been blown up, 2 of the mine rollers being destroyed. Basically like, well, we tried, we made it a mile and we gave up. So we have to rebuild a mine roller and take another mine roller that we brought to drop up there back just so we can make it back 24 hours later. So that was September 21st. That's when I hit my first IED in Afghanistan. Next day, we try again, and the fun begins. Right out the gate, 35 minutes later, I'm pulling a vehicle up a hill. Yep, I pulled a vehicle up a hill in my freaking security truck, because as my notes say, I'm a boss. And then vehicle 3 pulled Vic 4 up the next hill. So again, this guy who I'm not going to name continues to not be able to drive. And then it hits a ditch, and both the wheel sets for my mine roller fall off. So as I'm driving through the desert, there's a freaking drop off, like just a ditch. And these things have like freaking 5-inch thick pinnels that hold them on. And I severed all of them and destroyed my mine roller in the desert. So my mine roller is now useless, sitting on the back of a truck. Vehicle 3 pulls vehicle 4 up another hill. 3 minutes later, another hill. 30 minutes later, another hill. 15 minutes later, load checks. Vehicle 5 hits an IED 10 minutes after that. So we've now spent 2 hours making it very little distance because we're continually having to pull trucks up hills. I broke my mine roller and we hit an IED. Then vehicle 6 dies, another alternator issue. So vehicle 15 is going to charge it while the wrecker's rigging up vehicle 5 for tow because again, it hit an IED. Then we find 5 80mm mortars, and only 2 of them were detonated. 3 live mortar rounds still hanging out on the deck. And it says here at 1300, Oscar Mike, because Lieutenant Colonel Adams would not let us use the Mark 19 to blow up the mortar rounds, and so we marked them and we left them in the desert. 1440, more load checks. 1450, we're Oscar Mike again. 1515, 25 minutes later, vehicle 6 needs to be charged again. An hour later, vehicle 1 lost the weight. So there's like weights that sit on the wheels on your mine roller, and they fell off the left side of the mine roller. So we are now losing that mine roller too. The wrecker's having to pick it up. 4 of us tried to pick up this weight plate, couldn't pick it up. So these are like 5,000 pound just slabs of steel, right? 1700, halted on Highway 1, which is like the only paved road we drove on the entire time in Afghanistan. And vehicle 21 having transmission issues. Wrecker is rigging for tow. At 1840, we halted 2 kilometers from the base to charge vehicle 6 again, and for the wrecker to adjust some on vehicle 21, which it is towing. 1940, 108 hours later, we made it back to base on our original 48-hour planned mission of there and back. Right, so that's mission 24. Here's the interesting thing. This is from my notes once we got back to base. Friday, September 24th, 2010, day 135 in Afghanistan. And this was written at 3:50 in the afternoon. And life gets better. On our last convoy, Staff Sergeant Letterman hit an IED. The blast went through the 7-ton floor and shattered his leg, compound fracture. We had to medevac him, and now he is in Germany with external pins, a Jacob's ladder, down his right leg. He took it like a champ, though, saying he had a very like Forrest Gump-like accent, so I'm going to do this my best. This is literally what I wrote in my journal. In his very Forrest Gump-like voice, "Can I get a cigarette?" And then he said, "These are 2 ribbons I didn't want to get." And he said, "Call Gunny Kennedy and tell him to meet me at the hospital and bring me a pizza. I want a pizza." Mind you, he's clearly in shock, right, at this time. So, but I remember vividly us putting a cigarette in his mouth and lighting it, and he's on the stretcher waiting on the medevac, smoking a cigarette and just like ashing on himself, having a conversation with us, telling us, hey, make sure they get me some freaking pizza when I get there before I go to Germany because I'm hungry, right? And then on the return trip, both my truck and Sergeant Busick's truck blew up 2.4 miles from the Georgian cop that we left and 15 minutes apart on September 21st. And then the following day, we had Vehicle 5 blow up. So that's 4 IEDs in one convoy. And my roller, which was taken off the assistant convoy commander's vehicle to replace my blown up one, had both wheel sets just fall off in the desert. The one-day mission became 4. So we only moved to Fob Hansen today rather than the 19th as originally planned. So we're 5 days behind schedule. Fob Hansen was in Marja, which, there's a cool documentary on that from HBO called The Battle for Marja, and we were there. That's where we'd spent most of our time up until now on the deployment. So 5 days later, we're finally back at Fob Hansen. And by the way, the Georgian CP, which was India's 37's Old Hill in Sangin, has 3 Air Force EOD guys with only 1 truck. This is how we left them. And their QRF has 1 mine roller with no trucks. So all 4 vehicles got blown up. My life. I actually said lol FML. And so life goes on. I'm ready to get the out of Afghanistan now. So that is what a 20-year-old, that's how you feel hanging out in Afghanistan. This is real. This is raw. This is what it was like as a E3, E4 in Afghanistan. It could be summed up as, we thought we were going to do this today, plan changed. Truck blew up, sat for a while. Truck blew up, sat for a while. Thing broke, sat for a while. Next thing broke, sat for a while. Truck blew up, sat for a while. I vividly remember telling the battalion commander before we left the base that day, on day 3, when we were originally coming back to return to base, sir, we shouldn't go down this road because they call that IED lane. We should carve our own path through the desert. I can navigate it. I've been navigating this whole freaking deployment. We can make it out of here just fine. And I got told to shut up and color, for lack of a better word. And then we had 2 trucks blow up. We turned around, we made it back, and we waited 24 hours. And at one point in that conversation, I got asked how I was feeling. And I don't think I said anything that was repeatable to the battalion commander, but he let it slide because I had just been blown up, right? So kind of a little iffy in the head, if you will. Fast forward, we leave the next day, we take a slightly different path, kind of like what I may or may not have recommended the day before. We don't hit any IEDs for a while. We did hit one, but it was nowhere near that point. Can't control that. We finally make it back. Things break. The mission continues. And we push. All you see as you hear this story is thing went wrong, fixed it. Thing went wrong, fixed it. Thing went wrong, fixed it. We executed, and we made it back all right. Most people think combat is chaos, and it is. But inside that chaos, you still have to execute. You still have to make decisions. You still have to take care of your Marines. You still have to fix things. You still have to rig the truck for tow, and you still have to make sure that the mission gets done and everybody gets home. And that is why service members have an edge in life and business, because we can execute through the chaos. Semper Fi, guys.